Yes. Did he hiccup much? Yes. Ah, well, that's all right, and off he went again. Ha! 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 The old man laughed alone. Arkady managed to show a smile on his face. Bazarov merely stretched himself. The conversation continued in this way for about an hour. Arkady found time to go to his room, which turned out to be the anteroom to the bathroom, but it was very cozy and clean. At last Tanyushka came in and announced that dinner was ready. Vasily Ivanovich was the first to get up. "Come, gentlemen, you must pardon me generously if I have bored you. Maybe my good wife will give you better satisfaction. The dinner, though hastily prepared, was very good and even abundant, only the wine was not quite up to the mark. It was sherry, almost black, bought by Timofeek in the town from a well-known merchant, and it had a flavor of copper or resin. The flies also were a nuisance. On ordinary days a serf boy used to keep driving them away with a big green branch, but on this occasion Vasily Ivanovich had sent him away for fear of adverse criticism from the younger generation. Irina Vlasyevna had changed her dress, and was wearing a high cap with silk ribbons and a pale blue flowered shawl. She started crying again as soon as she caught sight of her Inyusha, but her husband did not need to admonish her. She herself made haste to dry her tears in order not to spoil her shawl. Only the young men ate. The host and hostess had both dined long ago. Fedka waited at table, obviously encumbered by his unfamiliar boots. He was helped by a woman with a masculine cast of face and one eye, called Anne Fasushka. She fulfilled the duties of housekeeper, poultry woman and laundress. Vasily Ivanovich walked up and down throughout the dinner, and with a perfectly contented and even blissful face talked about the grave anxieties he had felt about Napoleon's policy and the complications of the Italian question. Irina Vlasyevna took no notice of Arkady and did not press him to eat, leaning her round face on her little fist, her full cherry-colored lips and the little moles on her cheeks and over her eyebrows adding to her extremely kind, good-natured expression. She did not take her eyes off her son and constantly sighed. She was dying to know for how long he would stay, but she was afraid to ask him. What if he stays for 2 days? She thought, and her heart sank. After the roast, Vasily Ivanovich disappeared for a moment and returned with an opened half bottle of champagne. Here, he exclaimed, though we do live in the wilds, we have something to make merry with on festive occasions. He poured out 3 full glasses and a little wineglass, proposed the health of our invaluable guests, and at once tossed off his glass in military fashion and made Irina Vlasyevna drink her wineglass to the last drop. When the time came for the sweet preserves, Arkady, who could not bear anything sweet, thought it his duty, however, to taste 4 different kinds which had been freshly made, all the more since Bazarov flatly refused them and began at once to smoke a cigar. Afterwards tea was served with cream, butter and rolls. Then Vasily Ivanovich took them all out into the garden to admire the beauty of the evening. As they passed a garden seat, he whispered to Arkady, "This is the spot where I love to meditate as I watch the sunset. It suits a recluse like me." And there, a little farther off, I have planted some of the trees beloved by Horace. "What trees?" asked Bazarov, overhearing. "Oh, acacias." Bazarov began to yawn. "I suppose it is time our travelers were in the embrace of Morpheus," observed Vasily Ivanovich. "In other words, it's time for bed," Bazarov interposed. "That's a correct judgment, it certainly is high time." Saying good night to his mother, he kissed her on the forehead while she embraced him, and secretly behind his back she gave him her blessing 3 times. Vasily Ivanovich showed Arkady to his room and wished him as refreshing repose as I also enjoyed it your happy years. In fact, Arkady slept extremely well in his bathhouse. It smelt of mint, and 2 crickets behind the stove rivaled each other in their prolonged drowsy chirping. Vasily Ivanovich went from Arkady's room to his own study and, settling down on the sofa at his son's feet, was looking forward to having a chat with him, but Bazarov sent him away at once, saying he felt sleepy, but he did not fall asleep till morning. With wide open eyes he stared angrily into the darkness. Memories of childhood had no power over him, and besides he had not yet been able to rid himself of the impression of his recent bitter experiences. Irina Vlasyevna first prayed to her heart's content, then she had a long, long conversation with Aunt Vasushka, who stood rooted to the spot in front of her mistress, and fixing her solitary eye upon her, communicated in a mysterious whisper all her observations and conjectures about Yevgeny Vasilovich. The old lady's head was giddy with happiness, wine and tobacco smoke. Her husband tried to talk to her, but with a wave of the hand he gave it up. Irina Vlasyevna was a genuine Russian lady of olden times. She ought to have lived 2 centuries before, in the ancient Moscow days. She was very devout and emotional. She believed in fortune-telling, charms, dreams and omens of every conceivable kind. She believed in the prophecies of crazy people, in house spirits, in wood spirits, in unlucky meetings, in the evil eye, in popular remedies. She ate specially prepared salt on Holy Thursday and believed that the end of the world was close at hand. She believed that if on Easter Sunday the candles did not go out at Vespers, then there would be a good crop of buckwheat, and that a mushroom will not grow after a human eye has seen it. She believed that the devil likes to be where there is water, and that every Jew has a blood-stained spot on his breast. She was afraid of mice, of snakes, of frogs, of sparrows, of leeches, of thunder, of cold water, of draughts, of horses, of goats, of red-haired people and of black cats. She regarded crickets and dogs as unclean animals. She never ate veal, pigeons, crayfish, cheese, asparagus, Jerusalem artichokes, hares, or watermelons because a cut watermelon suggested the head of John the Baptist. She could not speak of oysters without a shudder. She enjoyed eating, but strictly observed fasts. She slept 10 hours out of the 24, and never went to bed at all if Vasily Ivanovich had so much as a headache. She had never read a single book except Alexis or The Cottage in the Forest. She wrote 1 or at most 2 letters in a year. But she was an expert housewife, knew all about preserving and jam making, though she touched nothing with her own hands and was usually reluctant to move from her place. Irina Vlasyevna was very kind-hearted and in her own way far from stupid. She knew that the world is divided into masters whose duty it is to command, and simple people whose duty it is to serve, and so she felt no disgust for servile behavior or bowing to the ground, but she treated affectionately and gently those in subjection to her, never let a single beggar go away empty-handed, and never spoke ill of anyone, though she was fond of gossip. In her youth she had been very pretty, had played the clavichord and spoken a little French, but in the course of many years of wandering with her husband, whom she had married against her will, she had grown stout and forgotten both music and French. Her son she loved and feared unutterably. She had handed over the management of her little estate to Vasily Ivanovitch, and she no longer took any part in it. She would groan, wave her handkerchief and raise her eyebrows higher and higher in horror directly her old husband began to discuss impending land reforms and his own plans. She was apprehensive, always expecting some great calamity, and would weep at once whenever she remembered anything sad. Nowadays such women have almost ceased to exist. God knows whether this should be a cause for rejoicing. Chapter 21. On getting up, Arkady opened the window, and the first object which met his eyes was Vasily Ivanovitch. In a Turkish dressing gown tied round the waist with a pocket handkerchief, the old man was zealously digging his kitchen garden. He noticed his young visitor and leaning on his spade he called out, "Good health to you. How did you sleep?" "Splendidly," answered Arkady. "And here I am, as you see, like some Cincinnatus, preparing a bed for late turnips." The time has come now, and thank God for it, when everyone should secure his sustenance by the work of his own hands. It is useless to rely on others, one must labor oneself. So it turns out that Jean-Jacques Rousseau is right. Half an hour ago, my dear young sir, you could have seen me in an entirely different position.